Get off my lawn! But first, subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you hit that notification button so that we get to annoy you every time we upload a video. The Magic Dads podcast is now available wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube at the Old Cranky Man Collectibles YouTube channel. Magic Dads is brought to you by Old Cranky Man Collectibles and all of our generous patrons over at patreon.com/MtG Dads Podcast. Go check it out for exclusive content and so much more. What up, fam? It's Monday, and that means today on the Magic Dad podcast, we're talking about Canadian Highlander.
Baby, I'm glad we carved out a day for it.
So, big news in Canadian Highlander effective today.
Yeah, May 1st. Not only Justin Timberlake's favorite day of the year.
What?
It's going to be May.
Random facts?
No, because it's in sync. It's going to be May. Anyway, sorry. I apologize to everybody. I'm Stefan.
No, don't apologize. It's absolutely not necessary. He's Stefan. My name is Blake.
Hi.
So yeah, new points changes. Points changes.
They're juicing it, man.
Yes. So I am so pleased that these stinkers finally came off of the points list. Let me tell you why. Because there are several cards on this points list that have now been removed from the points list that are traps. A lot of people would be like, here's my 9 points. I need another 1 point card to put in there. I'm going to play this card. It's a trap. So the points list can and does actively trick some players into playing cards that they have no actual business playing in their deck. Or they will decide that they want that to be their 10th point, and then they will create a scenario inside of their deck why that card is now their 10 point, or insert X cards to make it work.
Yeah, and we see that a lot because there are a lot of 9 point spreads that are very good. Soul Ring and Mana Crypt are 9. Triple Mox is 9.
Yep.
And these are arguably the most powerful point spreads in our format.
Yep.
So without further ado, I know we're excited to get to it. Let's start from the top. Blake, what's our first card that's getting adjusted?
They can see it right there on your screen. If you're listening to this on if you're listening to this on Spotify, you cannot see it. So I'll tell you, it's Mind Twist.
Oh my god. This card sort of discussed for a long time on whether or not. So Mind Twist is X and a black, and it says target player discards X cards at random for sorcery. I'm doing that from memory.
Are they random?
It is at random. I don't know if
it is at random. Yes, it says target player discards X cards at random.
So you can hit yourself with it technically if you get mind slavered. This card is super contextual. Yeah, I know. This card's super contextual. It's really good in certain decks that are obviously in black.
Yep.
And can run like Dark Ritual. And like if your first turn is land ritual mocks this, you're going to win.
Yep.
But listen to all those cards that I just listed to make this card a game winner.
Yes. So the thing about Mind Twist is that like I don't think that your typical black decks that play like Thoughtseize and Inquisition of Kozilek also want to play Mind Twist. Some of them do, but I don't think that a lot of them don't. The thing about Mind Twist is that it's really at its best when you cast it on the first few turns of the game.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think if Hymn to Turok is 0 points, there's no universe in which Mind Twist should be 1 point. Hymn to Turok, I believe, is a more powerful card.
I completely agree with you. Yes, for 2 mana, you always get 2 cards. Mind Twist only gives you 1 card for 2 mana. So
I think we sort of covered here, like going to 0 points totally makes sense. We agree 100%, right?
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt.
Still don't play it.
The the next card on the list is one of my favorite white cards. It is
Ooh.
Balance. Balance says each player chooses a number of lands he or she controls equal to the number of lands controlled by the player who controls the fewest.
Hmm.
Then sacrifices the rest. Players discard cards and sacrifice creatures the same way.
Very, very powerful card. Banned in Commander.
Yeah, so like you said, it's banned in Commander. So
Yep.
like in a deck, this is actually very similar to what you said about Mind Twist, where you start with
Hmm.
like land, Mox, Dark Ritual, Mind Twist you.
Yeah.
So you can do a very similar thing with Balance. So you can go land, Mox, Dark Ritual, and now you only have 4 cards in your hand. You cast Balance. Now you only have 3 cards in your hand. You also have a Mox in play that's not going to die. And so
Hmm.
all the other players now have to discard down until they have 3. They have to sacrifice
Yeah.
creatures. They have to sacrifice lands. The thing about Balance is, though, is I think Balance gets better the longer the game goes on.
Hmm.
In a deck where you want balance, I think Balance is going to be best resolving it in the mid to late game.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And unfortunately, a lot of the decks that are white heavy, or at least like any real white decks, want either card advantage in hand, so they want to have more cards in hand, or they want to have board advantage over their opponent. And either of those scenarios really hurts with Balance.
But I think that the real nuance to making a balance good is knowing when to cast it.
Oh,
How you're going to get the most out of your balance. Like I think most of the Death and Taxes decks can play balance face
oh yeah.
up, and it will be very very good.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree 100%. But you do have to, like you said, unload it at the exact right moment. It's like an Armageddon, right? You cannot play it at the wrong time. It will kill you. Um, but I totally agree with it coming off the points list. It's so narrow and it goes in so few decks. It does sort of make a sort of a, I don't know if this is important at all, but white is the only color without a pointed card. Yeah, balance was it. Sorry, white mages.
All right.
There's sort of a reason that Soul Ring and Mana Crypt just fall into white decks. I mean, outside of like Mox Pearl, obviously. Yeah. So I honestly, I'm fine with it going to 0. I do think a lot of people should look at it, especially like if you're a Planeswalker heavy control deck. Look at balance. It's free now. Like, don't be afraid. Go in on it.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those cards that can be very intimidating as well because it's first of all it's kind of a reader. It's not something that a lot of players have seen resolve or have resolve against them, so it can be kind of hard to figure it out. But
Oh yeah.
I think that give it a whirl.
Keep it a whirl.
It's a real
Pretty
sweet magic
opposite
card.
take as Mind Twist,
It
honestly.
is it is the exact opposite of Mind Twist. I think Mind Twist is a trap. So one thing that I want to point out about balance is like
Oh yeah, sure.
even in a control deck. So a control deck, typically where you don't have a whole lot of creatures in play, but you probably have a lot of cards in hand and a lot of lands in play. If
Hmm.
you play a balance and it results in you having to discard a few cards and maybe sacrifice a few lands, but all of your opponent's creatures die, you just wrath them for 2 mana.
Yeah. That and a lot of those decks do get value out of their graveyard, right? So you're sort of like fueling some of your graveyard. Don't like be bold. Don't be a coward. Play
Don't
balance.
don't sleep on balance.
Yeah, it's free. Go for it.
Next up is a land.
Ooh, one of my favorites actually.
Should I tell my story?
Oh, go for it. Yeah, yeah.
So I at one time owned a copy of Library of Alexandria,
Hmm.
and I traded it for a foil Avatar of Woe, which at the time was a fair trade.
Oh
Foil
yeah.
Avatar of Woe was going for a good chunk of change. The set had just been released, And foils were the new thing because they had never been around before. And a foil Avatar of Woe fetched a pretty penny. And I had a Library of Alexandria, and I traded it to a guy in our community. He still has that copy of Library of Alexandria, and he still gives me crap about it every time I see him.
You do love that he just held on to it this whole time. Like, didn't cash that check. So Library of Alexandria, in case anybody's wondering, is a card from Arabian Nights. It taps for a colorless mana.
Yes,
Taps,
important.
yeah, really important. A lot of these powerful older lands don't tap for mana. We're looking at you, Bazaar of Baghdad,
Yes,
and
Tabernacle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Library taps for a colorless, and you can tap it to draw a card if you have exactly 7 cards in hand. So if you're a control deck, you are generally wanting to have 7 cards in hand.
If you're a deck that doesn't care a ton about colored mana, you don't have a greedy mana base, it's okay to just put a Library of Alexandria in your deck because sometimes it's going to draw you a card.
Yeah, or a few cards, right?
Or a few cards.
Yeah, I think it's a totally reasonable include for a couple decks. I don't think every deck wants it still. It's free.
No, not every deck wants it.
Yeah. Like what the decks that really want this card are control decks or tempo decks that are super reactive and like to have a full hand and can draw at least 3 or 4 cards off of it over the course of the game. But the people that were putting it in as the 10th point, I don't think that was probably correct unless they were positioned to utilize it.
No, but I also think that a lot of the monocolored decks could just play a library now.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. I think, crazy. I think Death and Taxes could probably get away with it. Like if you're playing the control deck, like Death and Taxes gets to shift gears like that.
Yes, it does. Mm-hmm.
And so if they shifted gears into a control deck, playing against something faster like Burn or Goblins, then they're just going to maintain that stocked hand, and they're going to be able to draw 1, 2, 3 cards, 4 cards with it.
Yeah.
Really
The thing about library is if you get to draw 1 card, you also get to draw at least 1 more card.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. It's even if they destroy it, you're sort of 1-for-1ing them with land removal, and I don't know.
Please wasteland my library. Do it.
Yeah, that's honestly, I think this coming off the list is totally reasonable.
Yeah.
Totally fine. It does allow a lot of new lists to play it, and I'm excited to see it in a lot of new places.
Yep, absolutely.
Sort of one of the more fun removals from the point list. And Blake can go see if he can get it back.
There's no. Hey, I still have your Avatar of Woe. Do you want to just take these backsies?
Yeah. So next card on the list.
Next card on the list is Summoner's Pact.
Oh my god. Okay, so this card is a 0 mana instant. It says search your library for a green creature, reveal it, put it into your hand. At the beginning of your next upkeep, pay 2 and 2 green. If you don't, you lose the game.
Yep.
Which is sort of like the pact.
Yes,
right?
it's the pact thing. Mm-hmm.
This card was pointed for a long time because of a deck that has lost a lot of its power and isn't that great anymore, and that is Flash Hulk. Flash Hulk specifically wanted to have Hulk in hand with a flash and just set it off. And this is one of the casualties of when that deck was oppressive. Today, what decks want this?
Flash Hulk.
Okay.
Flash is 5, right?
Yeah, Hulk is 0.
Spellseeker's 3.
Spellseeker's 3. Yeah.
And now Hulk and Summoner's Pact are both 0. So you still get 2 more points that you're gonna play around with.
You can play with Vamp or whatever, or Mystical Tutor. Honestly, World's your onion.
World is your onion. Bring back Flash Hulk.
But that's the only deck, as far as I know, that really wanted this card, right?
You've got your Hermit Druid deck where,
right, yeah,
you want a Summoner's Pact for Hermit Druid. So
yeah, only if you can give it haste.
I don't know. Maybe like a lands deck that really wants to find Primeval Titan more frequently. I could see that. You sort of your mid-rangey green decks, maybe like a Cradle Hoof deck,
Oh
where it has
that.
just you just have a suite of different green creatures that you can go find for a variety of situations. Summoner's Pact for a Collector Roof.
Oh, that's actually sweet. Yeah, but
I think
it's
there's a lot of
honestly,
I think there's a lot of decks that can make use of a Summoner's Pact.
but it was never worth 1 point, right?
Absolutely not.
No, and it sort of trapped some people because they thought, we go back to this where it was like it's
Yep.
1 point. I'm going to include it because I have a target for it.
Yep.
Don't.
Yep. We were just talking to someone this afternoon about their green white mid range deck, and he was talking about Summoner's Pact, and he didn't really understand the nuance of it. He's like, why is it an instant when I kind of actually want to play it on my
Oh,
turn? And he's asking questions about it. And the only thing that I said, this was before the points reduction.
oh,
So
that's
when
right.
we were having this conversation, Summoner's Pact was still 1 point, and he was waffling on what he wanted his last point to be, and he was
Yep.
thinking he wanted Summoner's Pact, and I was like, it's a trap.
Yep. Generally speaking, and this is sort of what happens in modern with the primetime decks. Um, you're not paying that cost. You're winning on
Right.
that
Yep.
turn.
Yep.
Which is sort of like if you can't win on the turn that you're casting your Summoner's Pact, you generally don't want to cast it.
Yep.
Um, I'm not saying don't play it. I think you should absolutely play it if you're in Flash Hulk, or in it might be a nice push for Cradle Hoof too, right? Like that deck's
Sure.
I feel like been struggling a little bit just because of the amount of Pyroclasm effects.
Yep.
But give it a little juice. You could pay for it.
I mean, I believe that's what the council's reasoning was. Is between this and one of the other cards that's on the points list, they're really trying to beef up those green creature decks.
Yeah, I agree.
Give them a little bit more robustness.
And and again, like taking it off the list sort of frees it up from this feeling of like maybe I should include it as a 10th point and lets people examine it as a card on
Right.
its own.
Yeah.
And I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
I love that for Summoner's Pact.
Good for you.
Slay Queen.
Go off.
So those four cards, Mind Twist, Balance, Library, and Summoner's Pact have all been removed from the points list. There's two other changes. Two other changes. So both of these cards were previously 2-pointed cards, and they have both been reduced to just one singular point.
Mm-hmm. So the first one is going to be Mystical Tutor.
Yep, Mystical Tutor.
One blue mana instant that says search your library for an instant or sorcery spell, reveal it, put it on top of your library, or reveal it, shuffle your library, then put it on top. You don't
Yep.
put it on top then shuffle. That'd be silly. This
That sounds
card
like that sounds like a red card.
yeah. Oh my God, yeah, put it on top then shuffle. Is there some way to interrupt the
Anyways,
this spell long has been used. Well, it's been a 2-point card for forever, right?
yeah.
And I don't know that a lot of people even played it at 2 points.
It is most certainly not worth 2 points, and I'm hard pressed to believe that it is even worth one singular point.
You know where this would be good, actually?
It is a bit of a hot take, I know, but I do not believe Mystical Tutor is worth a singular point.
It's sort of a hard sell. It's sort of we've seen the Enlightened Tutor come off the list. That was one for a long time. Worldly's no longer a point. It's a card negative. It's face up, and arguably the instants and sorceries are more powerful in Canadian Highlander. At the same time, the one of the only decks I would consider running this in is, funny enough, Flash Hulk. Because
Sure.
this gets you Flash.
Yeah. Basically anything that can find the busted pointed instants and sorceries also gets pointed. That's just kind of a rule.
But I like it at 1. At 1, it's I think okay, like to find your 7-point card, to find your Time Walk, to find your Ancestral Recall if you're really going deep. I don't think it goes in every deck, but it's slow, it's face up. The cards I think that have the best amount of value from it are the Miracles.
So that's what I was just gonna say. So yeah, Davey's got his blue-white control deck, and he loves a Mystical Tutor to put Terminus on top or to put an Entreat the Angels on top, and I respect that. But I would build the deck differently personally.
Oh, okay.
Just not real big on the whole card negative face up thing, especially the card negative part. In an attrition deck, I don't think that it's worth your card economy to go down a card just to find a miracle so that you can cast it. It's kind of like going down 2 cards, even if you get a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 your opponent.
One of the other reasons that I'm okay with Mystical being 1 is blue does have a lot of draw spells that'll give you that will basically give you that card into hand. And again, I know we're talking about a spell making a spell good,
Right.
But it's contextual. I don't know that every deck wants this, and probably too many people are playing it. Right? Like maybe it's one of those things where people weren't paying 2 for it. People just weren't jamming it. They kind of want to see if they can juice it at 1. I don't know.
Mystical Tutor, glad it went down to 1 point. Would love to see it come off the points list entirely.
Just not a fan.
Okay, now let's talk about the card. The card.
It's sort of the big one, man.
I'll let you.
Bit of a story. I know you talked about Library of Alexandria. Back in the day, I played Standard in the Tempest block, and my favorite deck after Exodus came out was a deck called Rexer, which is named after 2 cards in the deck: Recurring Nightmare and Survival of the Fittest. For the longest time, Survival of the Fittest has been 2 points. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you how excited I am that this card is going to 1. It is probably one of my favorite cards of all time. It is 2 mana, 1 and a green for an enchantment. It has a photograph on it of a goblin killing another goblin. And it has an activated ability of green, discard a creature card, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. It is an absolute all-star. I play the bad version of it in Fauna Shaman. What deck wants this, Blake?
Rexer.
Yep, that's the deck.
Sandy B.
Andrew Bullock.
Hang on a second. I have to show you something.
All right, Blake, what do you got for me?
I am now the proud owner of a Survival of the Fittest.
Ooh, that is Pete Venters. Oh God, I love that card.
Yep, I picked this up from OCM last weekend. Again, before the points changes were announced. I have a Rexer deck, and oh, buddy.
Yeah, it's worth a pickup. It's sort of a pricier card now because it is on the reserve list.
But yeah,
getting it is such a mind blower. It's so good. It's worth 1 point, I guess. I paid 2 and happy to do it.
Oh, absolutely happy to pay 2 points without a doubt.
Do you like putting cards in the graveyard, Blake?
I do. I especially like putting a Traxigran Unifier in the graveyard and then casting a Necromancy.
Yeah, that card will get you there. And there are loops with Survival of the Fittest that mirror loops with Birthing Pod.
Yep.
Where and are cheaper, and you can do it all at once without any kind of additional bad cards in your deck, right?
Yep. Loyal Retainers.
Yeah, man. I adore this card. I am so excited to see it at 1.
Yes.
I think so many decks can make use of it at 1. If
now,
you're in green, if you have any creatures, play this card. Play it as your 10th point.
It's
in green and have creatures. Play it.
It's a hell of a drug.
It going to 1 is sort of inexplicable to me. I love that they did it.
Yeah, me too.
So before we sign off here, covering these 5 cards or these 6 cards that got changed, I took a look at the council votes on them. All of these cards were unanimous to reduce points on, except for 1. Where there was a single dissenting opinion.
I know.
Those cards had the dissenting opinion, Blake.
Balance.
Incorrect.
Oh.
It was Mystical Tutor had 1 dissenting vote. I know the one card that you're like, yeah, get it off the points list.
Yeah, it's a personal opinion. It's in no way. That's just my personal opinion.
I do love that they took this opportunity after the 2022 championship to reduce the points to kind of improve the format a little bit and test out the waters.
Yes.
Because like they've done this before with point reductions, where they just increase them later if there's a problem.
So one of my favorite things about Canadian Highlander, and specifically this thing that they just did right here, is that people have been screaming for years and years and years that there are cards on the modern ban list, on the legacy ban list, that do not belong on there anymore. Please remove them.
Mm-hmm.
And Canadian Highlander Council has taken an opportunity to really listen to the community and to facilitate a removal of cards that probably do not belong on there. Again, like you said, if it's problematic, they can always go back and put them back on there. The same way that WotC could do that with the ban list in both Modern and Legacy.
Any other format, they could do it. They choose not to because they don't want to. I don't know, create player confusion. But because banning a card is way more binary than pointing it, right? It is unarguably, but at the same time, I am comfortable with bold choices in formats to increase interest, to increase play. And if there's a problem afterwards, it's okay to be a bit reactionary.
Yep.
I loved that they unbanned Golgari Grave Troll in Modern a couple times just to test it out.
Yep.
Like, sure, yeah, mess it up a little bit, come back, fix it. It's okay. Totally fine.
Absolutely. Cool. Is that it?
All right.
Are we done?
That is all. I'm really, really happy we got to talk about this. This is such a fun topic for me.
Yeah, we had something else planned, but then they made this announcement. We were like, well, guess we're not going to talk about that anymore. Anyways, that does it for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We just want to remind you that we're proud of you. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.